Exactly $142,000 will vanish silently from your retirement nest egg. This massive financial loss happens while earning a guaranteed interest rate. Millions of hard-working professionals fall into this comfortable trap daily. They confidently believe their current strategy is making them wealthy. A young software engineer named Kevin feels totally secure today. He recently locked $50,000 into premium high-yield cash accounts. This choice protects his hard-earned money from sudden market crashes. Watching the daily interest balance grow brings him complete comfort. But here is the massive hidden problem with that math. Real inflation completely destroys his 5% nominal growth rate. His actual purchasing power is melting away every single year. This ultra-safe strategy secretly locks him into permanent financial stagnation. This exact financial illusion is trapping millions of smart savers. Over $80 billion are losing true value right now. Let us expose the invisible enemy keeping you middle class. The truth about your safe yield will surprise you completely. When we step back and look at the broader picture, Kevin is not alone in this invisible financial drain. Millions of people fall into a massive psychological trap when they start prioritizing immediate safety over their long-term purchasing power. We are culturally conditioned to celebrate guaranteed returns without checking the actual macroeconomic environment behind them. This feeling of absolute security is precisely what blinds us to the real damage happening silently to our hard-earned savings every day. The real enemy destroying your wealth is not a sudden stock market crash or a bad investment. The true wealth killer is a relentless economic concept we call the purchasing power paradox, where your money buys significantly less over time. Consider this terrifying financial reality that traditional banking institutions completely avoid talking about in their glossy marketing materials. Over the last decade, the average cost of essential goods like groceries and housing has skyrocketed far beyond standard interest. Let us say your local bank proudly pays you a 5% yield, giving you the illusion of upward financial momentum. If the real cost of living increases by 7% annually, you are mathematically moving backward. It is the equivalent of running on a treadmill that is slowly accelerating while you are convinced you are running a marathon. Every month you leave your money sitting there, your actual ability to buy things shrinks. If a typical middle-class family keeps their entire life savings in these safe accounts for 20 years, the math is brutal. They will experience an invisible purchasing power loss of roughly $85,000 due to compound inflation. They did everything right according to outdated financial advice, saving diligently and avoiding risky market gambles. Yet, when retirement finally arrives, they will shockingly discover that their supposedly massive nest egg cannot cover basic daily living expenses. This phenomenon creates a silent crisis, where responsible savers are punished relentlessly for their financial caution and discipline. The longer you stay in this comfortable safe zone, the wider the gap becomes between your dollars and your lifestyle. Focusing exclusively on nominal yields without factoring in the broader economic reality is keeping perfectly capable people stuck in the middle class. They are playing a defensive financial game in a system that aggressively punishes anyone not playing offense. The tragedy is that these individuals feel incredibly proud of their returns, boasting about their smart, conservative strategy at dinner parties. They are completely unaware that the invisible tax of inflation is secretly siphoning away their future freedom. Before we can fix this massive wealth leak and start actually growing your net worth, we need to completely rewire how you understand money. We must shatter the comfortable illusion of safety and look at the brutal mathematical truth. I spent years analyzing massive economic datasets and tracking how the wealthiest 1% actually position their capital during periods of high inflation. They never rely on simple savings accounts to build their generational fortunes. The traditional financial industry profits immensely by keeping you comfortably parked in those low-yield products, while they lend your money out for massive gains. My goal is to completely expose their playbook so you can finally level the playing field. Once you understand the hidden mechanics of real wealth creation, You will never look at a standard bank statement the same way again. We are going to decode the exact strategy used by the ultra-rich to preserve their buying power. By the end of this short presentation, you will possess a crystal-clear understanding of how to calculate your true return on investment. You will easily spot the difference between an illusion of safety and actual mathematical financial growth. Most financial advisors bury these fundamental concepts under mountains of complicated jargon and complex charts to make you feel completely dependent on their services. We are going to strip away all that noise and focus purely on the simple math. You will walk away with a fundamentally different mindset about risk and safety, empowering you to make aggressive but mathematically sound decisions. This shift in perspective is the exact turning point where middle-class stagnation transforms into true wealth accumulation. I know firsthand how terrifying it feels to step away from guaranteed yields and take control of your own financial trajectory. Remaining trapped in a system designed to slowly erode your wealth is the most dangerous risk of all. We do not need a degree in advanced economics or an expensive broker to reverse this downward trend today. We just need to look at a single everyday expense to understand exactly how this invisible system truly operates. Let us step out of the theoretical clouds and bring this concept down to reality, using something you probably purchased this very morning. Prepare to see the harsh mathematics of inflation applied directly to your daily routine. Let us look at a simple everyday example to perfectly illustrate how this mathematical illusion operates in the real world. Imagine you love buying a premium artisanal coffee every single morning before heading into work. 5 years ago, that exact same cup of daily coffee cost you exactly $4 at your favorite local cafe. You comfortably budgeted for this small luxury, assuming the price would remain relatively stable forever. To fund this coffee habit securely, you placed exactly $400 into a high-yield savings account, generating a guaranteed 5% return. You felt incredibly smart, believing the interest would pay for your drinks. However, today, that exact same cup of premium coffee suddenly costs $6.20 at the exact same counter. The underlying raw materials, labor costs, and commercial rent have all steadily increased over time. This represents a massive 55% jump in the actual price of your daily caffeine routine over just half a decade. Your everyday reality has rapidly outpaced the standard models most financial advisors use. Meanwhile, your supposedly brilliant 5% yield only grew your initial capital to roughly $510 during that period. The math clearly shows a massive disconnect between your savings and reality. This is the exact moment when the harsh reality of the purchasing power paradox truly hits your personal wallet. Your account balance went up, giving you a dopamine hit of success, but your actual buying ability plummeted. Your savings account generated a positive nominal return, which looks fantastic when you casually glance at your monthly bank statement. But in the physical world, where you actually live and spend, you are drastically poorer. You can no longer afford the same lifestyle using the interest generated by your highly praised, conservative financial strategy. You are effectively taking a silent pay cut every single year without your boss ever changing your salary. When we calculate the difference between your guaranteed 5% yield and the actual inflation of your daily expenses, the result is shocking. You have experienced a devastating 28% hidden loss in true purchasing power. This invisible erosion does not trigger any alarm bells or send emergency notifications to your smartphone banking application. It just quietly drains your future potential while you sleep soundly, completely confident in your financial safety net. This catastrophic mathematical reality applies to everything from your monthly grocery bills and healthcare premiums to your future housing costs. If you do not change your strategy, this silent drain will eventually consume your entire retirement fund. Now that we have completely shattered the illusion of the 5% safe yield, we must examine what happens over a lifetime. This mathematical reality creates two drastically different financial destinies for identical people. We are going to look at two ambitious professionals who start at the exact same financial baseline but choose different paths. Their vastly different outcomes will permanently alter how you view risk, safety, and long-term wealth accumulation. One path leads directly to lifelong middle-class stagnation, while the other breaks through the invisible barrier to true financial freedom. Let us explore these two distinct journeys and see exactly where your current strategy is taking you. Meet Sarah and Marcus, two incredibly dedicated 30-year-old professionals who both managed to save exactly $100,000. They desperately want to secure their future retirement without making any foolish financial mistakes. Sarah strictly follows traditional advice, placing her entire nest egg into a premium guaranteed account yielding exactly 5% annually. She feels a deep sense of relief, knowing her hard-earned money is completely shielded from sudden market volatility. Marcus understands the purchasing power paradox and chooses a diversified portfolio of hard assets and index funds, aiming for an 8% real return. He accepts short-term price fluctuations as the necessary cost of long-term wealth preservation. For the first few years, Sarah actually feels like the undisputed winner of this intense financial marathon. Her account balance steadily climbs upward every single month, without ever experiencing a terrifying red day or sudden dip. Meanwhile, Marcus watches his portfolio value bounce around unpredictably, sometimes dropping by thousands of dollars during temporary economic downturns. If you only looked at their emotions during these early stages, you would assume Sarah made the brilliant choice. But the mathematics of compounding, combined with real inflation, begins to violently separate their destinies over the next 3 decades. Let us fast forward 30 years and look at the shocking reality of their purchasing power at age 60. At age 60, Sarah proudly opens her banking application to see an impressive nominal balance of $432,000. She immediately celebrates this massive milestone, firmly believing she has successfully won the conservative wealth-building game. However, after factoring in an average annual inflation rate of just 4%, her actual buying power is devastatingly low. In today's economy, her massive fortune only buys roughly $180,000 worth of real goods. She sacrificed 30 years of potential growth simply to avoid volatility, resulting in a lifestyle severely restricted by rising costs. Her supposedly safe strategy ironically became the single riskiest decision she could have possibly made for her future. Marcus, on the other hand, allowed his capital to actively work in the broader economy over those same 30 years. He ignored the short-term panic of financial news networks and simply let compound interest work its absolute mathematical magic. By age 60, his initial $100,000 has massively grown to over $1 million in purely nominal terms. But much more importantly, his actual inflation-adjusted purchasing power sits at a very comfortable $412,000. Marcus now possesses more than double the real-world spending capability of Sarah, despite starting their journeys with the exact same initial capital. He successfully protected his energy and time from being silently stolen by the relentless depreciation of fiat currency. This massive gap in pure purchasing power is the secret invisible tax completely destroying the modern middle class. Millions of hard-working citizens are trapped on Sarah's path, unknowingly trading their future freedom for the temporary feeling of safety. The system absolutely relies on your financial fear to keep massive amounts of capital locked in unproductive, low-yielding savings accounts. It uses your natural biological desire for security to systematically transfer the wealth of the cautious to the educated investors. We must aggressively break this psychological conditioning immediately if you want to completely escape this mathematically guaranteed stagnation cycle. Fortunately, there is exactly one profound mindset shift that will instantly change how you deploy your money going forward. The single most important insight you must internalize today is redefining what the word risk actually means in your financial life. True risk is not temporary market volatility or the daily fluctuations of your asset prices. True, catastrophic risk is permanently locking your capital into an asset class mathematically guaranteed to lose purchasing power over your lifetime. Volatility is simply the unavoidable entry fee you must pay to access massive long-term wealth creation. When you finally understand that sitting completely in cash is an active decision to slowly become poorer, your entire strategy changes. You stop asking how to avoid all volatility and start asking how to outpace real inflation. Look at the current economic landscape, where sticky inflation and massive government spending continuously devalue fiat currency at an unprecedented rate. This macro environment heavily punishes anyone attempting to hoard paper money under the mattress or in a bank. The wealthiest investors right now are aggressively moving their capital away from static yields and acquiring productive, hard assets globally. They recognize that owning pieces of profitable businesses or scarce real estate is the ultimate shield against currency debasement. They do not panic when the stock market dips temporarily because they are playing a completely different mathematical game than middle-class savers. They measure their success purely by the accumulation of productive shares, completely ignoring the short-term nominal price. Your single immediate action step to escape this trap is to establish a strict purchasing power minimum for your long-term wealth. You must take any capital beyond your 6-month emergency fund and intentionally deploy it into productive market assets. Instead of frantically chasing promotional 5% yields at different regional banks, you systematically purchase broadly diversified index funds every single month. You completely automate this wealth-building process so that human emotion and fear never interfere with your financial execution. This simple shift instantly transforms you from a passive victim of global inflation into an active participant in global economic growth. You finally align your personal financial momentum with the undeniable upward trajectory of human progress and corporate innovation. By executing this exact strategy, you are fundamentally changing the DNA of your retirement from static defense to relentless, calculated offense. You are officially firing your savings account from the impossible job of building your multi-decade generational wealth. The math clearly proves that owning the market is historically the most reliable method for preserving and expanding your true buying power. You trade the comfortable illusion of daily stability for the absolute mathematical certainty of long-term economic expansion. Remember, every single invested dollar becomes a tireless worker fighting around the clock to outpace the rising cost of living. They never sleep, never take vacations, and relentlessly compound your true purchasing power while you focus on your daily life. Stepping into the world of productive assets might feel terrifying at first, because you have been conditioned to fear any financial volatility. But that temporary discomfort is the exact emotional price you must pay to guarantee a wealthy, stress-free future. You now possess the hidden economic knowledge that separates the stagnant middle class from the rapidly accelerating upper echelons of modern society. You understand why those 5% yields are actually a dangerous trap designed to drain your future potential. The next time a bank offers you a seemingly guaranteed return, you will safely ignore their comfortable illusion and choose true wealth ownership. Let us see exactly what happens when our tech engineer Kevin finally applies this powerful mindset. Think back to Kevin, our brilliant software engineer who previously felt incredibly secure watching his cash sit in a static, guaranteed account. He finally calculated his true inflation-adjusted return and immediately realized his safe strategy was destroying his future. Instead of panicking, he decisively shifted his capital away from the banking illusion and into a broadly diversified portfolio of productive, wealth-generating assets. He completely accepted the reality of short-term volatility in exchange for absolute long-term purchasing power expansion. Today, Kevin no longer worries about the rising cost of his morning coffee, his future housing expenses, or the silent theft of inflation. His money is finally working just as aggressively as he does, actively acquiring shares of human progress. This profound financial transformation is completely available to you the moment you stop letting fear dictate your multi-decade wealth accumulation strategy. You must firmly reject the comforting lie that a 5% nominal yield equals true financial safety today. The absolute worst financial decision you can possibly make is to actively choose the mathematical certainty of becoming slowly poorer over time. Embrace the dynamic nature of the global market. Buy productive assets consistently and let the power of compounding work. True wealth is never built by hiding your capital from the economy. It is built by boldly owning a productive piece of the economy. Your future self will eternally thank you for having the courage to step out of the comfortable illusion. Remember this fundamental economic principle every single time you review your personal portfolio or consider locking your money into a new savings vehicle. Ownership of productive assets will mathematically outpace the simple yield of static currency over any meaningful timeline. The invisible barrier keeping millions of intelligent, hard-working people trapped in the middle class is built entirely from a misunderstanding of risk. Shatter that barrier today by aligning your hard-earned capital with the undeniable trajectory of global human innovation. You have worked entirely too hard for your money to let it be silently confiscated by a system designed to exploit your desire for safety. Take absolute control of your purchasing power right now, before inflation consumes another decade. If this breakdown shattered your perspective on safe yields, I strongly encourage you to entirely reevaluate where your long-term capital is currently parked. Start mapping out a concrete plan this weekend to move your excess cash into a diversified portfolio. There are entirely different layers to this economic machine that you need to understand if you want to truly protect your family's generational wealth. Stay intensely curious. Keep questioning the traditional narratives and always verify the underlying mathematics of financial products. The journey to complete financial independence requires continuous education and the courage to act upon the harsh mathematical truths others choose to ignore. Rest well, knowing you now understand the real game. And I will see you in our next exploration.